Hi folks, wherever in the world you are, welcome to the FCM question and answer with some pretty special guests today, Shawn Farquhar and Kenrick Ice McDonald. I'll bring them straight in the conversation. We've got a question thread going, so if you want to hop on to FCM and ask some questions of the guys, please hop on there now. We'll deal with those as we go through an interview. But please welcome to FCM. Boy, I'd have to start on the intro now because it's a really long one for these guys. Current president, I'll shorten it down. Current president of the IBM and current president of SAM, Mr. Shawn Farquhar and Mr. Kenrick Ice McDonald. Welcome, guys.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Super great to be here to sit next to the president of the SAM.
As well as sitting next to the IBM president, international president.
Ooh.
And I get both you and Big Wang, and so does everybody else. Really great that you could sort of put this time aside, guys. I've know you've done a lot of these in the last couple of days, and you've had an IBM jam going on, and so we really appreciate the fact that you've put the time aside to sit down and have a chat with us all. I'm going to start with. Let's get some background on you guys, but I want to give people a rundown on who we're talking to now. Shawn, you're, to be fair, probably a little bit more well-known, so I'm going to start with Kenrick, if that's okay with you.
Sure.
For the people who don't know who Kenrick McDonald is, Kenrick McDonald is the current president of the Society for American Magicians. He is also the first, as I understand it, African-American president of the Society of American Magicians, experienced stage magician, extremely popular in his genre, which I'll get him to delve into more a little bit later. And what else can I tell you about him that I haven't? Look, I'll let Kenrick. Kenrick, tell me a little bit about how you got started in magic.
Well, my story is a little interesting. I've been in this business for a long time. I've been exposed to magic probably about a good 45 years now. My magic experience started, I believe, around the age of 10, about 10 years old. I received a magic kit, but what was unique about this particular magic kit is that some of the pieces were missing. So here I am as a 10-year-old kid having to use my imagination and my creativity to figure out actually how these effects work. And then I moved on from there. I actually, there was a couple of things I didn't find out, but the majority of the things I did figure out, and I was hooked. So about 45 years later, I'm sitting with you guys, but
Yeah, but in between you did a whole lot of stuff.
I did
like win a whack of trophies from the Beast AM. Remember the Magic Castle? Wow, you're skipping over a whole chunk of your career in there, cuz.
Yeah, that's right. I won Entertainer of the Year. I won Trophy of Honor from Performance Trophy of Honor from India. I'm 3 or 4 times award winner for the PCM International Pro Challenge. Let's see, Model of the Year.
You had an award from the military.
I did, actually. I went on tour for the military, and after witnessing my performance, they gave me a medal of excellence, and that is a very big honor because I know of one other guy who received that medal, so I'm pretty proud of that as well.
They don't know many magicians who get medals from the military.
Yeah.
Anybody's military.
What people probably don't realise, though, Ice, is that that self-same magic kit was could have been the end of your magic career very, very quickly. You want to elaborate a little bit more on your battles with your family?
Well, you know, it's interesting because the magic kit. I tell people I started off right. I started off with the stack. The deck of cards stacked against me. You know, most people get a prestige magic kit. We were poor, so I instead of having a silver spoon in my mouth, I had a rusty spoon, and so and on top of that, you know, I come from a real strict Christian family, So the problem with that is, they gave me a magic kit thinking that it was a phase. Oh, here, get over it real soon. And traditionally, the Christian families or the church, they hear the word magic and they run, the other way as fast as they possibly can. But here I am, a preacher's kid, so to speak, and my father was a pastor of a church doing magic. So, that caused some controversy.
You were like the devil.
Actually, they was like, oh, well, what you got to do about this? And oh, it's just a phase.
Just a phase he's going through, and the devil will leave him soon.
Yeah. So
can I say? No, sorry, I was just going to say we're all a little bit over 50, gentlemen. We're all still going through the phase, I think.
Yeah. Yes. I'm still in that phase.
I don't
that was the day I took my first hit. I'm an addict, so that was the day I hit my first magic hit. So and I've been a magic addict since. And hopefully a pretty good one. So.
Now it's interesting to have you both sitting on the couch together because I've got to say, between the two of you, you're diametrically opposed to how you got into magic. Shawn, give us a little bit of a background on you.
I was born doing magic. My mom says when I was born, the doctor slapped me and I said, pick a card. My father was a magician, my grandfather, my great-grandfather, so I was sort of destined in that direction when I was very young. It wasn't really supposed to be me. It was supposed to be my older brother, Scott. But it turned out he had talent. So he became an animator, and that left me to run the family business. And my father taught me, and I had the magic kits and stuff. And I remember, opening up under the Christmas tree, the TV magic kit and all that stuff. But we had stuff around the house, and my father brought home, talented entertainers and people. So I was surrounded by magic from a very early age. And I was lucky enough when I was 15 years of age to be introduced to magic clubs. I moved out. My dad never hung out with magic clubs. He never called himself a magician. He called himself the keeper of secrets. And he wasn't really big on sharing the ideas and hanging with other magicians, teaching them tricks. It was, you show your stuff, I'll show my stuff, and then I'll go home. So when I turned 15, I moved out of the house to move to the other side of the country, and my parents were going to follow. And I discovered through a bus driver, a guy named Carl Hemming, the local IBM ring on 183, and I went to a meeting, and it was like, there's a room full of people, and it just started there. It was so long ago, like 1979, 1980. I've been the fall of 79, and all of a sudden I was surrounded by all these magicians, and I learned, I have to admit, in leaps and bounds at that point, because so many guys, there were, old guys who were young men, like Tony Yang and John Gillen, they shared their stuff with me. And as I showed promise and went and competed, they opened the door even wider and gave me more information and helped me along. So I jumped in leaps and bounds because they all helped. And then I went and competed, did the competitions, started with the Pacific Coast Association Magicians, and went from that into the IBM and to the SAM competitions, and won all those, and then moved right on into the FISM competition. And then I felt it was time to give us something back. And so still performing, traveling around the world, I work cruise ships. I've been on cruise ships for almost 25 years, but I also work casinos, nightclubs, lots of corporate shows. And now I spend a year traveling around as president of the IBM, spreading the good word about, even if you don't belong to the IBM, belong to a magic organization, SAM, IBM, even your local one if it's not affiliated to something. But being with other magicians, people like-minded, can really improve your magic.
That's great advice. Actually, we'll get on the club thing. There's a question on the thread regarding the IBM SAM thing. Most people don't know that this is not your first office-bearing job. You actually were the president of the PCAM for a period of time. So you're not new to the office-bearing role. The question that's come up on the thread is, how are the tensions between IBM and SAM? Now, I'm pretty sure I know the answer to that, but I'd like you guys to give the answer, obviously.
It's interesting that the question is there, which means there is a perception.
Yeah, and it's pronounced SAM.
Well, he likes to say SAM. They don't like to say SAM.
A lot of people say SAM, but is pronounced SAM.
Yeah.
I'm sorry, I'm so Australian. If you've never met Australian people before, you know we shorten everything. I'm sorry.
How short does it need to be?
Barbie.
Society of American.
If I could call you ice, if I could call you I would.
I had my local RVP correct me once because I used to say Sam all the time, and he said, "Do we call the other one Ibum?" I was like, "Okay."
I stand corrected.
There's a small little old fringe of, and even younger guys who are very adamant about, I'm just SAM or I'm just IBM. But when, you confront them and you ask them why they don't like the other group, they usually don't have any valid reason. There isn't a lot of animosity. There's the Reds, there's the Blues, but I think Ice and I like purple, which is kind of a mix of red and blue. He got a purple costume. We like purple. We think it's a good choice. And we both, we have our struggles. There's a few people in both our organizations who are very anti the other organization. And we look at them and just try to figure out why they have that. Well, ours is better. Well, that's grand. That's pride. No problem. But no reason to tear down somebody else's to build up your own.
It's the promotion of magic. Back in the day, they had the Hatfields and the McCoys.
Yep.
And they hated each other. And just for the simple reason that they were the Hatfields and that they were the McCoys. They probably had the same characters, same personality, had the same common denominator, but just because they were the IBM and the SAM. But they couldn't explain to anyone why they didn't like each other.
If you go around the world, you'll find there's a lot of magic clubs, especially in the United States, that are joined. They're both IBM and SAM clubs. And there are places where they're completely separate. In most cases, they work hand in hand. Here in Vancouver, well, we're in Maple Ridge, the middle of nowhere, but in Vancouver, we have two clubs, an IBM and an SAM. Well, we have two IBM clubs in the area and an SAM club, and they all work well together. In fact, I was the president of the IBM when I became the founder of the SAM club. I was the president of the IBM local, ring number 92, and I started the Assembly number 95 to honor one of my mentors. And now I'm the dean of Assembly 95, which just celebrated 25 years as a club, where the IBM Charles Howard ring is, 1942. But they work hand in hand. Lots of members are the same in both. We support each other's lectures and dinners and public shows. There shouldn't be animosity. And any that exists is just fabricated in the minds of the people that are angry about it.
We just actually did an IBM jam, and it was amazing because people were, wow, the SAM president is at an IBM event.
Until they figured out that maybe ICE was also IBM.
I've been IBM. I'm on the Order of Merlin. I'm a 25-year-old member of the IBM.
You joined IBM before SAM.
Actually, 6 months before the SAM. So obviously, I love both organizations if I'm going to be in both of them for 25 years. So I think the animosity is there, but it's dying out because a new generation of SAMers and IBMers are coming in, and the lines between the both are blurring into the purple.
I laugh because, I'm a life member of both organizations, and every once in a while somebody will say, why are you over there in the other camp? And I go, why wouldn't I? We both love magic. End of story. That's what we're there for, to do magic. The politics part, that's just to keep the organizations alive so that they can both do magic.
It's very interesting because we've been friends, dear friends for
forever.
Forever. I mean, years and years. And so when we became president on the same year, people were asking, why are you guys so close? What is this unity thing? And we've been united forever. We just want to bring it into.
I remember back in 1991 when we had that secret meeting and said one day we'll both be president and rule the world.
Yeah, in 91 we decided that we would take over the world.
We just needed a longer game plan to get to it.
It took a little while though.
It's Pinky and the Brain. Pinky and the Brain.
Obviously, the brain, right?
Pinky.
I love the purple analogy, guys. That's a really good one. The red and the blue, the purple, that's brilliant. Yeah, look, I say the same thing. I mean, we're not really magicians. We don't compete against magicians. Surely we compete against other forms of entertainment.
Yeah, totally.
If we're talking about getting gigs, that's where we're at, isn't it?
That's what our job is. Our job is to promote magic, put it in the best light possible, to bring in new members, to educate them correctly on the ethics, performance, and the respect, the history of magic, and then to let the public eye see magic the way it should be seen. That's what our job is. We're out there representing all magicians around the world, going, here's what magic's about, and to do it in a positive light.
And this is what it's supposed to look like.
Yeah.
You know, in the big scheme of things, magic is an really old art, and it's a beautiful art. I mean, there's nothing like a magician. The skills that we have, you know, not everyone can pick up something and make it vanish. We have a very unique skill. So it is our job to show the world what excellence look like.
Mm-hmm. Leon Mandrake, the magician, used to say, magic is the second oldest profession, but not nearly as interesting as the first.
Really? Really? I actually used a similar gag in my show. I didn't know I'd been preempted. I'll have to change it around now.
long time ago.
Yeah, guys. One of the other questions is about the presidency and the office bearing in the club. How much does that impact on your career and your time while you're doing that?
Wow.
Yeah.
Want to go first?
You go first.
A massive amount on both time, career, finance, all those things. I hit the ground running on July 5th and headed straight to China. I haven't slept in the same bed for 3 nights until Christmas time. I came home middle of December and took a break, and I hit the ground running day after tomorrow. And back on the road, going to Florida next. From Florida, I'm going to Bulgaria, Hungary, Russia, over to Vienna and Austria, and all of this is out of my pocket. A lot of people think that we have massive expense accounts, but we don't. We're giving back to the love of magic. There's small per diem, but it definitely doesn't cover what we're doing. We traveled just recently, Ice and I, to Chicago to do a benefit to raise money for a member who's facing some health issues, and we pay for our own flights out and everything. Sandy Marshall, who produced that one, was kind enough to get us, accommodations in, so we weren't completely out of pocket. But financially, it's a big hit. Time-wise, everybody wants your time. We try to fit in as much as we can. We're doing as much. The night before last, I did a 2-hour lecture in Sri Lanka. Of course, I couldn't make it to Sri Lanka and back for this, so we did it by Google Hangout. Technology's helping a bit, but I'm still trying to keep the career going and get out there and do shows. I try to be the busiest working guy out there, but in between, I'm trying to put more focus right now on what the IBM needs, and so it's shows around things that I need for the IBM.
It became a balancing act for me because my Ice McDonald brand had been traveling like crazy. And so the last couple of years, we've been actually setting myself up for this year. When I hit the ground running on the 5th, I went on an extensive media tour, hitting all of the radio stations and trying to promote the organization. My goal was to get as many people to witness these great organizations of magic, the institution of magic. And so I spent my first 6 months making sure people knew about magic. I got a few, as Shawn said, in December is when everything kind of started slowing down and giving us a moment to actually
and you got
rest.
sick.
Yeah, and actually, my time, the only time that I'm not on the road, I get sick for 12 days.
Well, your body figured out you had a break.
And so I'm getting ready to actually, I'm in Canada now. As Shawn said, he had an interview day before yesterday, and then we had a telephone interview, and then we had 2 today and some tomorrow. So
tomorrow he's got to go to the SAM Assembly 95 where they're presenting with a plaque and do the whole thing here.
Right.
So
So it's getting pretty busy. From this point on, my goal is to continue to promote magic. Yes, promote the Society of American Magicians, but you have to understand that this is a great art. So I stand in a unique position of showing the world what we look like.
Yeah, totally.
And I get a chance to go into different countries. I get a chance to go. I'm traveling. I leave here. I go home for a moment. You know, I'm married for 26 years in March, so I get to spend time with my lovely wife and then head off on the road again. So my goal is to show people what magic really looks like, and in all of that, as you can see us sitting together, showing that it's all about magic. And he put it best. I believe he says,
keep calm and perform magic.
Perform magic.
That's what it's about.
It's not about the bickering of this. It's the spirit of magic.
Go out and have fun time.
That's what connects everybody. If you stand everybody and you can look at their spirit and their love for this magic, that's what it's really all about. Not colors, not, you know, whatever level you are supposed to be the best person and the best representative of whatever genre you are. So if you're just a novice and you're pulling a quarter out of someone's ear, you have to be the best quarter puller that you can be, pulling that just to get that grandchild's expression. And if you're on stage and you're doing the best, you're supposed to make the nation stand up and go like, oh my gosh, what is this thing? What is this great art? So that's what it's really all about, and what we represent.
If you ever get to hear Ice lecture, that's literally like a little segment out of his lecture, and it's inspiring. And that, I think, is one of the most powerful things when he goes out doing his tour as president, when he gets to speak in front of groups and talk and tell them that, you know, each of them is the face of magic, and that when you don't do it right, when you fail, when you screw up, when you decide to practice in front of an audience, you're basically committing magical treason.
Magical treason.
Yeah. Look, when I was doing my research, gents, as you know, as we would know, I know a lot about Shawn. Shawn and I have had a lot of conversations over the years now. I didn't know a lot about you, Ice, to be fair, and but I did make some notes as I was going, and I'll give you three of the words that came up. One of them was intense. The other one was compelling. The other one was captivating. What I didn't write down, because I hadn't actually spoken to you, was passionate.
Yeah.
You're obviously an incredibly passionate person about what you do.
Yeah, I think passion is pretty much the best word to describe it.
Right.
I've been married 25, almost 26 years, and people always say to me, they say, you know, how does Lori feel about, you know, your relationship with magic? And I always say, well, I fell in love with magic before I met my wife. So I'm very passionate about magic. The performance of it, the preservation of it, the history. And some people may call me a hoarder, but I'm just a preserver of the history of magic in 6 cars worth of garages at the moment and gathering more. Yeah, a passion for it.
Yeah, I think the...
and yet if I had to compare the two of you, I would say that Ice has more passion than you, Shawn. That surprises me.
You know what, you say that, but, you know, I tell people, you know, that if you cut me, I bleed magic.
I love that.
My wife says it's in my DNA, but if I could say, I found one person that's more passionate about magic than I am, and I think it's Shawn, because
we're each other's presidents of each other's fan clubs too.
Yeah, he's the president of my fan club. I'm
president of mine. So awesome.
But I think you have to have passion. That separates you when you're in the trenches and you're trying to show people this great talent. You know, when you get knocked around in this business, if you don't have passion, I think you will walk away really easy.
I remember when I started in magic, you know, all the faces of the people that were around me, and all the young, encouraged magicians, exciting, going to the contest, going to the conventions, the staying up till 4 o'clock in the morning, the sleeping in the vans out in front, and most of them went to real jobs and got real lives and got responsibilities. And then there's a few of us that Well, we realized that we have absolutely no employable skills, so we're going to stay doing what we do.
We're unemployable.
Totally. We got nothing but this. We love it.
Well, you can do worse than spend a lifetime doing what you love. But if you're going to be known for one thing at the end of your IBM tenure, Shawn, it's going to be the Keep Calm and Perform Magic logo. Is that now your epitaph? Is that for your tombstone?
I don't know if it's for my tombstone, but I really believe in it. I think it's such a strong statement that it's, we're not brain surgeons. Nobody dies at the end of the day if we don't do it right. We're not lawyers. Nobody goes to prison when we screw up. We're magicians. And even in the worst case scenario, we don't hurt anybody. But what we can do in the best case scenario is change a person's life. I tell a story. There was a man. I came out of a show on the Norwegian Star and went to get a snack, late night snack, and went outside on the deck to eat the burger. And there was a man standing in the rail. I said hi, and we talked for a few minutes, and he seemed kind of off place. The conversation kept talking. Next thing you knew, it was like 4:30 in the morning, and we talked about everything. And I showed him a couple card tricks, and we laughed, and it was fun. And then it was about 3 years later, I got a letter from this man. And he told me that the night I met him, it was his intentions to jump over the rail of the ship that night and kill himself. That his wife had just left him, that he was diagnosed with cancer, that there was nothing good in his life. And he booked this cruise long before his wife and him had separated. He decided to take the cruise, and he was going to jump over the rail. He said, but he went to see the magic show. And he said he laughed more than he'd ever laughed. He cried twice in messages that he read different things into him than what I said, but he got something out of it that had meaning. And then when he met me in person and realized what I said on stage wasn't a script, that it was genuine, he said he just couldn't stop talking to me. And he went home. He wrote the card magic book. He started practicing magic. He said 3 years later, he was in a coffee shop, met this beautiful red-headed girl from Ireland, walked up to her and said, would you like to see some magic? Did some tricks for her, and then proposed to her several months later. And he was writing me to invite me to his wedding. And he said, I don't want you to think that you got me the wife because I did all the hard stuff, but I want you to know you had a part in it. I keep that letter. I didn't go to the wedding. I didn't know what I would say if I got to the wedding. Gee, glad you didn't kill yourself. No, I don't know what I would have said. But I have the letter, and it's, to me, a real badge of honor that what I do in magic, even though I consider it to be little card tricks and what I do, I'm a small part of a really big show, the fact of the matter is we can affect people's lives in the best case scenario of what we do.
You have to look at this whole thing in a life kind of situation. If you ever can perform, I remember performing for a childhood cancer foundation, and the kids were crying and everything, and then I knew they didn't want to see this guy, but as I was performing, all of a sudden, you hear them giggling and talking. And so what happens with Shawn and that guy and with myself, if you ever as a performer can get the passion of your heart and the skill of your talent to connect right here, it goes out so hard that you're the one that actually benefits from that. And then at that very moment, you realize that this is what it is really about. When you can connect the passion of your soul and of your heart to the skill of your talent, that's when you make that connection.
That's strong words. As I've said, passionate. There are no two more passionate men on the planet. Actually, you told a bit of a fib before, though, Shawn. You did have a skill before magic, little known, but I did discover that you studied as a chef.
It did. I started when I was very young. At 15 years of age, my brother had applied for a job at 16 at a pizza place, and he wasn't home when the pizza manager phoned to offer him a job, so I accepted the job. And I collected paychecks under my brother's name when I was underage and not employable because I liked to cook. And I started as a pizza cook, and then became a broiler cook, and cooked lasagna and steaks. And then I actually went to a culinary institute thinking I was going to go towards being a chef. I worked at a place called Rattenbury's, which was a very high-end 5-star restaurant in British Columbia, Canada. And my chef had a nervous breakdown, and I became, I was sous chef at the time, but I actually became chef of the restaurant for a short period of time, and saw exactly how much stress there was in organizing 25 people in a line, getting your bakery, your line cooks, your prep cooks, and working with the wait staff and ordering the food and preparing new menus. And I was chef for less than 9 days. I think the 9th day was the day I walked up to my boss and said, "Yeah, I'm going back to doing card tricks," and quit. And yeah, I've tried a lot of things, but I don't know whether it's a skill. I think that's more of a trade. I'm very lucky that what I do in magic I feel is like a God-given gift. I'm just, I practice to hone it, but my magic isn't in my hands. My magic's in my presentation and how people can accept what I say and do.
Magic seems to be infinite. It's like you can go to something and come back if you wanted to. I actually, in my late teens, was a fashion model, and if you know anything about fashion models, their lifespan is about 4 years. So but I was doing magic also, and I was looking at people like John Calvert who lived at 100 and something years old, and I'm going like, okay, these looks are gonna go away soon, as you all can see. It's gone away, but the magic has lasted forever.
I've seen pictures of him on the runway as a model,
and so I was able to incorporate magic with the modeling, but as the modeling went away, the magic sustained itself. And that's the beauty of our art.
The modeling helped you because it taught you how to pose on stage, how you got that ice look and the style and everything.
Oh yeah, the stand and the way you walk and the way you present yourself in front of people, all that helped. Even as a martial artist, all that keep your balance and I use my hands a lot, and that's what happens in martial arts. You use your hands a lot. So all of that comes together. The dancing, the singing, the speaking, all that works when you're on stage or when you're presenting your magic.
And all my culinary skills have helped me now because I can eat any food anytime. I've proven it as I'm getting bigger and bigger.
You stole my intro to that question, so I was gonna throw that one because I'm sure that no one knew that one about you. But thanks for bringing that one out there. But it does lead to a really good point in that modeling helped you with your magic. Now I think a lot of times we get very magic centric. We look inward. It's really important to look outward for certainly for inspiration. Your thoughts?
Yeah, look at the great artists. The people, contemporary artists that we all admire right now, like a Jeff McBride. Jeff, he's phenomenal, and all his inspiration comes from outside magic. Comes from his Wiccan community, Burning Man. It comes from kabuki theater and the martial arts. It comes from drum dancing, that sort of stuff. And we're fascinated by it as magicians because we go, look, that's different. Where we all look at each other and we all do the same trick, we all do it the same way, but the people we look up to are people like a Eugene Berger because he has this voice that just booms. He's a storyteller, and the way he comes across. Leonard Green, he's totally into games. He's like 9 years old at heart, and everything's about a puzzle and a game, and so he created all his magic based on puzzles and games. So finding what the outside influences are really defines who they are as a performer. Yeah, you look at these guys who are like totally buffed and rocking it. They're into weights or whatever. It's their outside influences that help to define who they are within our community.
Sometimes you can look at folks way even out of the magic community. One of my inspirations was Sammy Davis Jr. And the reason being because of perseverance. Unfortunately, he had to go through his greatest talented years when he was treated somewhat not as equal, but he persevered and he ended up being one of the greatest performers because he had to perform in spite of. You know what I'm saying? People who have done things in spite of tends to be stronger. You know, I'm a magician today in spite of having the stack against me. We were not rich, and I had a magic kit that was not complete. I could have easily said, this is not complete, boom, throw it away, but you have to go in spite of. So you look at inspirations out there who have achieved in great, with great problems or with great issues, and you see that you pull from their inspiration.
Yeah, you know, nobody's dealt the perfect hand, and it's about finding the uniqueness in the hand that you were dealt and how to play it to the best of its abilities. I love when magicians come up and say, I can't palm cards because my hands are too small. So find a better way to do it. What? Well, if you can't do something, there must be another way to do it. Find a new solution. 90% of my magic is because the true goal that I was going for, I wasn't able to achieve. But I found something that worked, and I used it, and it worked better. I have an effect that's called Torn to Pieces, a torn and restored photograph trick, which later I found out was based on an idea by Dan Harlan. Dan's a genius. Oh yeah, you got it up there. When I went to, yeah, that's an excellent magic trick. Good choice to have in your collection.
I'm an unashamed fanboy, Shawn, you know that.
One thing most people don't know is Torn to Pieces is the result of a failure. It was my goal to tear the photo and restore it perfectly, but I couldn't make it happen, no matter how hard I tried. And in the end, not making it restore perfectly was better, because when I tore it up and I did find a way, well, I didn't tear it, I cut it up and restored it perfectly. When I gave it back to the spectator, they looked at it, that was nice, and they usually gave it back to me, or they left it on the restaurant table. When I tore it up and it was restored mixed up, they took it home, because now it was unique. And so the failure was the success. So often I reach a point where I think it's good, but it isn't, and then I still perform it, and then all of a sudden it becomes so much more successful as a failure than it was as the goal I'd set in my mind.
You know, a lot of times my failures come. I'm self-taught. I've never had a mentor. I'm doing close-up now, and the person that I counsel with, you know, the 3-time world champion here, you can have a better counsel here. But my failures came because I had every step I took forward, I took 2 backwards because I had no guidance. But in those failures, I learned how to produce birds or produce effect a different way, because no one told me I couldn't do it that way. So,
but this is the rule. You have to do it that way.
Yeah,
there
was no rules. You know, people used to say, don't perform with people behind you and in front of mirrors. And I'm finding myself doing, you know, bird illusions in a discotheque. I know I'm dating myself, but in a discotheque where I'm down, there's mirrors all around me, and people are looking down all the way around, so I'm totally surrounded. Because no one told me that I couldn't do it.
Exactly.
You know, so...
And you wanted the gig.
Yeah, I wanted the gig. And so not having a mentor somewhat kind of affects me, but on the other hand, I had to figure a way to achieve in spite of.
I think a good mentor lets you fail. Sometimes my students don't understand that, where I send them out knowing that they're not going to do as well as they should. But I think sometimes it's better to learn from failure, because it stays with you for a lifetime. If I just give you a rule and say always do that, and you accept it, you never know why the rule was put in place. But if I say this is how you should always do it, but if you want to go do it your way, go ahead, and then they fail, now they know the consequences of it. And now when they go out the second time, they do it my way, they know the results are different, and it's a more positive experience.
You know, by not having a mentor, I've mentored 5 Magic champions, but I know how to mentor them. Not having a mentor, you would think that would be difficult, but I mentor people, and when Shawn said you let them fail, you know, not everybody will hear everything you say.
Yeah.
So you're sitting up there saying, I told you to do it that way, but I want to do it my way. You let them do that. And then you can come back and say, okay, I've given you the opportunity.
What did you learn from that?
Yes. I gave you the grasshopper, you know, like grasshopper. Grasshopper, you know, you can't take the pebble from my hand until you succeed, you know. So mentoring is wonderful. I believe in mentoring. I just didn't have the opportunity. And, you know, my situation was different because, you know, I'm come very strong Christian background. My parents wouldn't give me a mentor that's magic. You know, they want me to have a mentor that's a minister or you know, Bible-based kind of mentor. So I had to suffer not having that advantage.
You're better at the mentoring. I've mentored dozens, but I find that most of the people I mentor at some point get angry, and they don't like you anymore. And then it's years later when they come back and apologize and say, "Wow, I just realized I'm successful. I've got my own show here, or I've done this TV thing, or wow, I would never." And then they come back once they're very firm and successful. They come back and say, "Thank you for everything." I'm like, "Yeah, but I remember the time when you hated me because it was like you didn't give me that, and I want to do this." And I'm like, "I'm sorry, but you know, there are stages." And I mentored one couple where it was like, first you're going to do all manipulation, and then from the manipulation I said, now you should learn to do illusions. And then I put them on a completely different path. I said, now you should do comedy. And they were like, which one should we do? And I'm like, now you're doing comedy, but you told us to do illusions. Yes. And then later they're doing comedy and illusions with the manipulation, and they're winning awards and becoming internationally acclaimed. They're like, but you never guided us. I'm like, well, no, actually, I gave you exactly the stones that you needed, and you stepped on them in the right position, and that's how it all came together. It happens. Yeah, everybody, I think.
I think there are a lot. I think there are a lot of magicians that do grow without having a mentor. I certainly didn't have a mentor. I didn't know a mentor. I didn't know what a mentor meant when I first started doing magic when I was 11, 12. But I think if you're smart, you become a sponge. You listen, you learn, you talk, you ask. You know, questions are the best way to learn anything. I often say in this day and age, if you've got a question you can't find the answer with what we've got to call on, why wouldn't you? You know, wow, you can find the answer to just about anything you want to know at the tips of your fingers within a minute. So yeah, I found myself becoming a sponge from that, and I'm sure you guys still do that.
The connectivity of this world. The connectivity.
I know Shawn answers ridiculous questions from me at any given hour of the day or night, generally.
Yes.
Because I don't sleep.
No, he doesn't.
And you don't swear it, I do it either.
I find it interesting in this current environment, the information age. You can, when I was young, you know, to meet a hero of mine like Doug Henning, I remember writing a 3-page letter and spending months to find an address to mail it to, and then putting the stamp on and waiting months to get a letter back. And when I got it back, it was like a miracle. And now, you know, I admire an author of a book. I can go Google and find it, and within minutes I can find his address or an email. I can find his phone number. I had somebody the other day find my phone number on a website and just phone me, and I said, "Hello, Shawn here," and they went, "It's really you." I'm like, well, that's who is really you. You're Shawn. Yes. I can't believe I found your phone numbers. I can't believe you didn't. It's like, why are you calling? I just want to make sure it was real. It is. Have a nice day. It was like,
look,
my daughter's,
you know, we overrate the importance of the star. Well, we don't. We rate the stars in our industry, but people from outside would go, yeah, so what is an important magician? That's not a great deal in the big scheme of things. You're not rich, you're not famous. I mean, you are a little bit famous, Shawn, and you are a little bit in the mainstream, but, you know, in reality, we're really all pretty much just in our own little world, aren't we?
Small part, really big show.
Yes.
It fascinates me when I'm actually recognized by somebody who isn't in magic.
Right.
I came home through Seattle, Washington a few months ago, and a TSA, Transport Security Agent, stopped me. He goes, "Stop. You know what? Never want to be stopped by these guys. Stop." "Yes, sir." And he says, "I know you." I was like, "No, sir, I don't think you do." "You fool Penn and Teller." And my heart just, it was like,
yeah.
But I would never have imagined that anybody would recognize you from it.
It's crazy. Being on the airplane, I was on the airplane, and as soon as I'm getting ready to take the last bite of the best sandwich I ever had, So I go like that, and guy go, I saw you on TV. I'm like, oh, now I got to eat really good now, right? You know, just barely. You can't put your back into it because you're on.
You're on again.
Mark, it's a wonderful thing because you go, wow, you have nothing to do with magic, and you recognize me.
Yeah.
Can I ask how did I,
But it is rare, which
it's rare.
still makes it fun.
It's fun. Yeah.
I can't imagine having the celebrity status that like of a Bono years ago, 1995. I performed in the People's Republic of China for the first time, and I did a live television broadcast. There were 300 million viewers, 60,000 people in a stadium, and I experienced stardom. I walked out of the arena, and more than 10,000 people wanted to touch me. When I went to the hotel room, the hotel was flooded in the lobby, and security was pushing people out. They were pressed up against the glass. At 4 in the morning, I woke up and went down the lobby, and it was like I was in an aquarium with people all jammed against. And I remember going back to my room and phoning my mom and dad and going, I never want this again. There was no privacy. There was no boundary. Ice went to India and can tell you about trying to have a meal and people just,
taking pictures, take strobe light pictures, and I'm going like, oh my gosh, is this what it's about? And they didn't even care. We're having a conversation. They're just standing here taking pictures. I'm going like, oh, what's going on? And I've been in situations where, and I appreciate people loving my performance, but people mobbing me and snatching off buttons and snatching off, clothing. And I'm going like, I don't want that. I'm a magician. I'm not a rock star. Thank you for loving my show, but don't snatch my stuff off.
Yeah.
So it can be.
How great is it, though, gents, that magic has the potential to reach that level?
It's mind-boggling. When it happens, it's mind-boggling. I did a show in Busan, Korea, and the producer, Kasa, said to me, I want to put you on in this spot. And I really didn't want to be in that spot because the act before me is such a strong, powerful act. I'd watched him just the day before do a show and got a 12-minute standing ovation. And I'm thinking, I got to follow a guy who's going to get a 12-minute standing ovation. Please, Casa, put me somewhere else. And he said, no, I'm the producer. This is your spot. And so I went out. I sat down in front of 3,000 people in this auditorium of all Korean-speaking people to do my Shape My Heart routine. And I'm thinking, they don't even speak English. They're not going to get the words of the song. This is going to fail miserably. This is a bad move. I sat down on the stool. The music came on, and 3,000 people sang Shape of My Heart in Korean while I did the trick. And I was like, what? It's like, he says, oh, I didn't tell you, but on Youku, which is the Asian version of YouTube, he says, you have videos on there with 5 and 6 million hits. They loved that trick of yours. I'm like, you could have told me that in advance. It was like,
the thing with getting that level, we all perform. Every time I step on stage, I'm expecting a standing ovation because I do the work. So, we put ourselves in the position where it can be that way. We can't have it, I guess, both ways, where we don't want that fame, but yet we put in the work and expect to get that result. I think one moment that made me feel really good is I was in an arena and there was about 55 people, and I'm performing, and here I am, this little thing, and I'm looking around, and everybody's on their feet. I'm going like, are you kidding me? And then I start thinking about it. Every time I'm practicing, struggling, messing up, doing everything, this is that moment that we always perform for. Whether you're in a boardroom of 6 people, and they stand up from their chairs and clap, or 5,500 people, and they stand up and applaud. We fight for that. So why shouldn't we expect it to go to that level when we're expecting that it should go to that level?
We have the greatest art form in the world because we can make people laugh, we can make people cry, we can make people scratch their head. It's different than anything else. We can make them connect to their childhood. People go, oh, it's the same as acting. I said, no, it isn't, because acting is a collaboration of a lot of people, script writers and coaches, And a lot of magicians, I think 90% of the people who will be watching this are their own coach, their own costume designer, their own makeup artist, their own script writer, their own choreographer, their own technical consultant. They do it all. And I was humbled the first time I worked on a motion picture, and I walked in to see a scene that was going to be 30 seconds long, and there was 140 people standing around. I was like, wow. It's like, okay, you know, you can ask for other people around you, and in magic, we should be looking to more people to bring in. And you'll be surprised within your own magic community, your magic ring or assembly, how many people have powerful tools that can help you that you don't know are there. Even if it's just their own personal judgment on, well, when you said that, it felt weird, or when you moved your hand, it looked like you were doing something. All of those things can really change the way you do magic.
You know, a lot of times in this whole industry, we have a mind mentality. Mind. I can't share this with you because it's mine. And if I share it with you, it's no longer mine. Now you're open to it. So sometimes we don't ask people to help us with things because we don't want you to take it. And I do understand because people are pirating other people's things, which, by the way, we're totally against. For the record, piracy. That I feel that way, but that's why people are so closed in because they're worried. They're worried.
But you can get all those technical people from outside the magic community. You'd be amazed at how engaged theater people will become to you if you went and said, "I'd like to help you block out the way I present this 4-minute act." They'll be like, "Really?" Because for them, it's outside their norm. Instead of, well, you have to stand by the couch and deliver the line, to the fourth wall, they'll be like, "You're a magician. I want to help you. Can you stand this way?" "No, because I'm going to flash." "What does flash mean?"
Yeah.
"Well, let's just say it's not good. Now tell me where I can stand otherwise that would look approachable." Learning things like, entering from stage right and stage left, that villains enter from one side and heroes enter from another side. These are things most people don't know. But it affects the moment you walk out onto stage how an audience perceives you, whether you play upstage or downstage, when you deliver your lines, if you deliver them to the front row or to the back of the house. But by bringing somebody in from outside of magic to help you with your magic, it can really improve it.
A lot of people, having those people to help you, see, you're a star in magic. No matter how large you're doing it, when you help, they want to help you. We as magicians, we minimize magic. A thumb tip and a scarf vanishing or a dove pen. We get to that and we go, "Oh, we're done. We got to move up to another thing." But let's look at it. You take a scarf, you put it in your hand, and it vanishes. That's magical. That's whimsical. We downplay as magicians.
That's old
the
magic.
Effect.
I already learned that when I was 8.
Yeah.
But when the lay audience sees it, it's still a miracle to them.
Scarf vanishing. That's magic. And so people would help us no matter what level you are because we're taking them back to their childhood. When they see that little thing, remember the first time you saw the magic effect and you went, "Oh," someone who just said for the first time, it's magical. You see what I'm saying? So they will help you. Get people outside to help you because if you're a magician, no matter what level you are, you like a star because you're doing something that someone else can't do.
I still occasionally do a Svengali deck routine close-up.
Why not?
When I did the Ellen DeGeneres show, somebody wrote on.
It's one of the best card forces out there. The audience can do it themselves, completely hands-off. Why wouldn't you use that tool?
It's a powerful
and that's
tool.
what it is. It's a tool.
When I did the Ellen DeGeneres show, somebody wrote a YouTube comment afterwards that said, "I can't believe you used a Svengali deck on Ellen DeGeneres." And my response was, "I can't believe you wouldn't think I would." Because to me, I'm going to use the best tool for each situation. And if I'm going up in front of an American television audience of massive numbers, I'm going to do the best method for that moment. End of story. Leon Mandrake used to do a card sword with 3 cards being stabbed. And I said, "How do you ever accomplish forcing 3 cards you know, every night to 3 different spectators and not miss. He said, oh, it's easy, Shawn. I pick people in the front row of a 1,500-seat theater, and I show the cards in a big fan. I lower them down in front of the man so only he can see, and I say, here, take a card, and I hand him a card. And then I move to the next person and say, take a card, and I hand him a card. And then I say, take a card, and hand him. The rest of the audience thinks he took any card he wanted to. What I told him was, take a card, and then I gave it to him.
You were thinking like a magician.
Yeah.
Exactly.
You have to actually, no matter, you still have to perform, but if it's a packet effect or a super skilled effects, you still have to represent it the best way it can. You know, a lot of people would take that packet trick if it was just a packet trick. But no, you still have to do that packet trick the best way it can ever be done because it has to look magical.
Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. Actually, I want to go back, Ice. You mentioned something about magicians being very protective of their secrets, and yes, we are within our own organisations. Shawn would probably know I have a slightly different outlook on that. I think the best way to make something mine is to share it with as many people as I can.
You know what? Back in the day, when you would show somebody an effect, and then someone else wanted to take it, the general knowledge of people would say, let's release it, so then I will put my stamp on it. That's how it used to be. You release something, or you have it printed, and that was mine.
Put it in print, no one will ever find it, but now it's yours.
But now, the way it is now, is people think that when it's out there, that it's public domain, and they take it. Okay, so before it would put your stamp on it and say, boom, this is copyrighted. They call it the poor man's copyright. You know, you copyright it, and it belongs to that person because now it's in print.
Yeah, but I saw it on YouTube, and I reverse engineered it. I'm allowed to perform it.
Or I'm doing it with my left hand instead of my right hand.
I use a blue deck instead of a red deck.
So now it's mine. You understand? So
I gave it a cooler name than you had, so
yeah,
it's mine.
It's the same trick, but a different name.
I produced a trick years ago with a security tag where a card ended up, and another magician came up with something very similar. And so I met him, and I said, I'm just curious where you got the idea from. He said, well, I saw it in your lecture. I was like, so you sold it? Yes. And what was sad was his name for the trick was way better than mine. Both of them aren't on the market anymore, but it's very depressing when people see that. But that's what happens. But yes, sharing it, getting it out there, letting it be seen. But some stuff is better hidden and kept and never shared. My signed card and sealed deck, I promised to release it, and I will one day, but not now, because secrets can't be protected now. It's too easy for it to be torrented within minutes of it coming up. I was telling a story yesterday at the IBM Jam about a young magician wanting to help me to help fight piracy. He said, here's a torrent site where I discovered Woody Aragon's book in English. I said, what do you mean? He said, the person bought the book, the person sliced the book apart, and the person photocopied every page of the book and then made a PDF file. And to the life of me, to this very moment, I can't see the purpose of it. Somebody spent their own money, tore apart their own book, photocopied every page of it, scanned them, compiled it into a big PDF file, and then gave it away free to the world. For what purpose?
There is a purpose there, I would suggest, but I don't want to discuss it on a Q&A like this. I think there is a reason for it, and I think they do benefit from it. But I don't want to discuss it because I think it opens up the opportunity. I last night contacted Ian Rowland, a mentalist that I've never talked to before in my life.
Love Ian.
Because someone asked about a pirated PDF that they found online, whether it was pirated or not. As I said before, with social media, we can just, within minutes, I had a reply from him saying, no, it's not, it's pirated. So, you're able to jump on those things, but yeah, it does open up a can of worms because, as you know, I've seen you discuss with many people about posting links to things. Once you do that, you're opening up the Pandora's box to that item, aren't you?
100%. I had a guy write me the other day, and he said, Shawn, I'm having difficulty downloading the template off of the DVD for Torn to Pieces. And I wrote and said, well, it's in the DVD-ROM section. He said, well, I bought your DVD online. And I said, okay, well then I'll send you, the files. Just send me the registration code that's inside the DVD case. And his response was, didn't you read my email? I said I bought it online. And I responded with, well, yes, lots of people buy my DVD online. Did you actually get sent a DVD? Or did you buy a downloaded video ripoff of my DVD, which didn't come with a registration code, and obviously doesn't have any of the files with it, and you're asking me to send you the stuff that you didn't get because you didn't pay for it for real? And he never replied.
I wonder why.
I wonder. That he actually contacted me to ask boggles my mind.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, sorry, Oz. No,
the SAM and the IBM, we have a joint ethics thing here on
preventing piracy and
piracy.
Now we're registering, legitimate dealers through like the MDA. We're trying to weed out those guys. I think that FCM does an excellent job of keeping a very civil, great communication line and saying when they see something that isn't right and supporting. I think that's awesome. There are other sites that do the same thing, but then there are tons of sites that go, here's where you get free stuff. Go to this place and get that stuff for free.
We just had a landmark decision.
Teller.
Yeah, tell them a little bit about that.
Teller's, most of the listeners are probably familiar with it, that Teller's rose effect as a shadow was reverse engineered by a magician in the Netherlands who then turned around and offered it for sale. And Teller took him to court. It took a long time to serve him because the guy was avoiding the serves. And finally the judge decided that he was intentionally avoiding the serves, so they allowed the court case to go forward. And in the end, Teller won. And it's a great step forward. I think there's some issues with it, and that it could open the door to a bigger can of worms. But I'm really pleased that Teller won, and that this person's been put in their place, and that Magic is taking a step forward ethically to say, even if you figure it out, doesn't mean it's yours. And if the creator of it doesn't want to release it, it doesn't mean you go and you do it. And you say, well, it might not be his method. Well, that's a lame excuse. I had somebody recently go, I reverse engineered your Penn and Teller sealed card thing, and I'm going to sell it. And I was like, well, knock yourself out, but don't mention my name or the Penn and Teller thing. Sell it however you want to. He says, well, the reason I can do that is because you haven't published it, so I don't know that my method isn't your method. And I'm like, if that's your defense, there's nothing I can do. You're already got your own ethical standard. You're there.
It's a character thing, It's a character. It's an integrity thing. For those who have integrity and those who have well-intended characters, we're not going to see that. But no matter what happens, what laws are changed, and we have hope that this will start a trend where we can protect ourselves. But if you don't have a good character or your integrity is not intact, then it's a lost cause, because it has nothing to do with the magic organization or the magic world. It has to do with your integrity or the lack of thereof.
I have a friend who worked on this TV thing and hired technical consultants to work with them, and they developed an effect that's absolutely beautiful, theatrical. It was based on one guy's idea, then he brought in other technical people to help. It became this wonderful showpiece that he's very well known for. He and the consultants, of course, split after the project's over, and then the consultant turned around and went to another act and basically sold them the exact same thing that belonged to the other person, but has no qualm with it, going, well, I consulted, so it's basically mine. It's like, well, no, it's basically the person who presented it. He brought you into his fold, into a group. You helped to mold this person, but when you leave that stuff with him, because it's his now. And you don't then go, well, here's a new person, let's do what he did, and we'll make it big for you too. That's an integrity thing. That's the
choreographer taking responsibility for the dancer.
Yeah, exactly.
Yes.
Exactly.
Good analogy.
Wonderful analogy.
The sad part about the whole thing, though, is that there is some amazing magic that won't get released. That will remain underground because of it. There are an awful lot of people floating around this wide world with a dog tag that you're aware of, Shawn, but I doubt that it'll ever get made.
Oh, I hope it does, because it's a brilliant idea, and I've been playing with it now since, almost a year on handlings, trying to get one that's going to be killer. But yeah, you have to be very, very careful on how it's released, when it's released. It's got to, anything you're going to release, you want to release big. And people think that when you release something, you're going to, I'm going to make a fortune. I had a young girl write me, and Maddie said, is it possible to get the template? And I said, yeah, it's on the DVD. To which she said, well, if you didn't charge so much for it, and I broke down how much I really get off of a $30 DVD. By the time you get down to my 40%, and from my 40%, the R&D, the fact that I had to buy studio lights, set up cameras, edit it, buy the software, the PC that ran it, then go and pay to have the DVD cover, get an artist to put together the artwork for the DVD and for the cover, and then to pay for royalty-free music, and put it all together, and put it on your magic shop's counter to be sold. There's not a lot of money left on my end of it. Everybody else makes way more money than I do on it. What I get is the pride of knowing that my trick is in somebody else's hands doing magic. And so when somebody then just steals it, it's like, you just reached in my pocket and stole the trick, not the money. It's really not that big. It's that you didn't even have enough respect for me to give me the nickel I'm making off of it.
Yeah, absolutely. That's the problem. As I said, there'll be, your signed card to sealed deck should have been released, probably 5 years ago, I guess now. You've been talking about it since 2009, I think. It's going to take a lot longer, I guess, because the protections probably aren't there at the moment.
It was going to come out right after Extended Stay, and when I released Extended Stay, I did a short little email blast to like 1,500 fans. If you have Extended Stay, you're looking at your shelf like you're going for, yeah, there you go. In my hand. So when I released this, I put it out on, I have a fan newsletter. You can subscribe to my newsletter, and then I give them all deals when things first come out. And it's usually, 40% off, 50% off, whatever, and it's for like 10 days. Well, when Extended Stay came out, I offered it to the 1,200 people, and I sold like 300 of them, and they all got it for basically cost. And within 3 days of it coming out, it was already a torrent. And that meant fans, friends of mine, somebody in that group, which I thought was a tight group, torrented it. And so I'm not very good at computers. I'm good, but I'm not that good. But I hired somebody, and they found out where the torrent originated. And I looked, and there was only one person from that country who bought it. So I phoned them, and I asked them. They were quite surprised that I phoned them, and even more surprised that I knew that they torrented it. And they didn't understand there was anything wrong with it. For them, they thought, well, I bought it, so I can do whatever I want with it. I said, no, you bought it, and you can perform it and do whatever you want with it. I've never held rights for anything to do on TV. You'll never see any of my products that come out and say you can't perform it on television or you can't perform it when I'm around. I understand it. I just don't do it. I loved when Torn Pieces first came out, and Stephen Fry and Dynamo had it on a Pimp My Party on MTV like days afterwards. And people still write me and go, I'm going to be on Good Morning America. Would it be okay to do your trick? And I'm like, I'd love to see it on Good Morning America. It's like, it doesn't have to be me. It gives me a real sense of pride to see people go out there and do my trick and get television exposure. And it's awesome. Sheer luck. So many people have been doing it and showing me TV clips of it. It's awesome, isn't it?
Yes.
Cool. But now you just got a catalog of my stuff sitting there.
I'm going to send you a catalog of my
second effect in the second half of my show, actually.
Awesome.
Daz, I'm going to send you a catalog of my stuff just in case.
Ice has got some awesome stuff. You got to see his fortune cookie card trick.
That's a question. That was my next question. Are you a creator? Because I'm not aware of any of your material, and that just may be a shortage in my education.
No, I'm actually, I do it a lot, release a lot of stuff during lectures. Some of the stuff that I've been doing for ages, I'm just now putting out because the very thing we've been talking about, I would do something and then somebody reverse engineer it, and I don't believe that copy is the best form of flattery. I really don't. And so after I did accomplish a couple of great television shows where I was able to present it worldwide, then I said I was going to bring it out. So, yeah, just stay tuned because we're lecturing. I've been lecturing for a couple of years, and it's only available in the lectures, but now...
And available online at icestormentertainmentgroup.com.
Yes. So, icestormentertainmentgroup.com in the product section.
Under live. We've been building his website for
follow-up notes to this interview.
Pardon me?
I said that email address will be in the follow-up notes to this interview.
Awesome.
Oh, most definitely. So I have some things that are coming out that has been tried and true. I've been doing it for a long time, and it's almost like instant miracle type of thing. And so they're coming out. You'll see me a lot, but a lot of people on the lecture circuit see my product. I'm just getting ready to go big now.
Excellent. Excellent. Sorry, Shawn, I spoke over you then.
Oh, I was just saying Dove Workers will really like a lot of his stuff. He has is it a 2 DVD set now? Dove Wisdom, which is everything he produced back in the 90s and more all added into one DVD.
Excellent. I'm sure we can look at. Okay, I'll stop talking for a minute there. Look, some of the standard questions, guys, I guess I probably wouldn't mind getting to. Although there was one on the FCM site. Bear with me while I swap screens here. Speaking of sheer luck, Shawn, you got an Andy Hoffer, which I know you know Andy, big fan of yours. Do you have any other cool projects in the pipeline? Now we've covered ISIS.
I have several new cool projects. Sheer Luck has kind of exploded. There's like thousands and thousands of editions out there, barely keeping up with them. But I have Sheer Luck in German, French, Spanish, and English. I also have a release of Sheer Luck done as the Time Machine book instead of the Adventures of Sherlock Holmes. And it's coming out as The Invisible Man too, so people can have multiple copies of the effect done with different books. And the fact of the matter is you could stack down a stack of 3 books and have them pick the book of their choice and still do the same effect in the same manner. Next one to come out is an effect called Scratch My Back. And it should have come out last year, but I slowed down my releases just because my time as the president of IBM is really taking it up, and getting into edit and put it all together is taking a little bit. But Scratch My Back is a really cool premise. You borrow somebody's iPhone and their bank card or their loyalty card or any plastic card with a magnetic strip on it, and they take their iPhone, their calculator on their iPhone, they punch in the numbers that exist on their credit card in a series, like the first 4 multiplied by the next 4, divided by the next 4 numbers, subtract the next 4 numbers, and hit equals. And whatever that number is that appears on the calculator, you turn over their credit card, and you scratch like a scratch-and-win ticket into the black at the top, and the numbers that are on their calculator appear in the black magnetic strip. And once they see that, you wipe over it, and it goes back to being their credit card, and you give it back to them. Their credit card, their iPhone, your magic.
Excellent, excellent. That's the Sheer Luck books are a great idea because that will be really good to be able to mix them up a bit. Where did I have a question here? Where did I have a question? Ice. How long does it take to develop a bird act?
Wow, I'm still developing it. You know, you never finish. I've been doing, when I first got into magic, you know, as a kid, you know, you do the little trinkets, but once I got 20, I jumped right into birds. You know, I mean, bam, 9 birds at the age of 20. And so I've been developing, and without a mentor, you're developing certain productions that you really don't know if it's going to work. So then you start reading and getting the proper stuff. Developing an act with birds require having to have the love for the livestock, because most people think that you have birds and they don't think about you have to store those birds, you have to feed those birds, and you have to do everything with live animals, and you just don't store them. These are your bread and butter. So you're feeding them the best food, you're doing everything you possibly can. I've been performing the routine that I have now. I've been performing that for about 15, almost 20 years, and each year I come up with something different that I don't put right in my act because it takes time to develop it. But it's something that replaces the weakest part of my act. So every time I come up with something, it's replacing the weakest part of my act, because I want everything in my act so strong. Everything is a finale piece in my act. So even now, I'm reinventing the birds. Actually, for the last few years, I've been performing with no birds. It's so difficult in the States as well as internationally to perform with birds. So I stepped out one time. I've been used to getting standing ovations with the birds, easy. And I walked out on a show. I took a chair, put it in the middle of the dance floor, opened my briefcase, and start performing magic out of my briefcase for 1 hour. Standing ovation. I'm going like, oh, I just had a chair and a briefcase, and I got a standing ovation instead of bringing in 5 cases with birds and everything. And so I was like, okay, so it's really, the birds are the great element, but it's really my entertainment talent that was able to bring the standing ovation out of people.
Kind of laugh. We were thinking back when we both did bird acts, like in '91. It would be an hour setup to do an 8-minute act. And now we have an 8-minute setup for an hour act.
For an hour act. So
it's
it makes
the exact opposite.
And so to answer the question is, you always continue to develop. I have stuff that I still love the birds, and I have some cool effects that I want to eventually add in, but it's not the main part of what I'm doing now. So, but I'm still developing. You never stop developing. Once you stop developing, you start going the opposite way. It's almost like going up, 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 and as soon as that engine stops, it starts going this way. So you still have to continue to perfect and keep moving. Don't give up. Try to find a mentor, because it's very important at this day and age to try to make some leaps and bounds. A lot of times, without a mentor, I fell in a lot of holes. And so now when I mentor, I guide that person around the hole so they don't fall into it. My job is to keep them from falling in that hole that I did. I've already experienced that. So find a mentor that can kind of leapfrog you over some of those holes and get you to the position you want to be. So hope that answers that question.
Yeah, absolutely, absolutely. Shawn, on the same vein, how long did it take you to develop your card effect for Penn and Teller? How long had you been working on that by the time you hit that television show nearly 6 years ago?
I did. The first time I did the signed card and sealed deck routine was probably in about 1997, 1998. I had it perfected pretty quickly. I knew what it was going to do, and I worked on it for about 4 months, and then I tried it in one of my heroes' hands, and he freaked out, and I knew I had a winner. I tweaked it a little bit. By 99, it was a solid effect in my presentations. I did the competitions at IBM and SAM and won awards. In 2000, I took it to the PCM and won the Grand Prix award with it. And then it's just been that effect since. I had very little change since 2000. And so by the time I got to Penn and Teller, that was like 2010 or somewhere in there. It was after FISM, right? So
yeah,
like,
it was after. Yeah.
2000, so like 4 years ago. And it hasn't changed any since then. I still do it all the time. It still gets the same reaction. It was inspired by George Schindler, a trick called Sealed Surprise. but I didn't use his method. I just liked the idea that a card would go back in the sealed deck. In George's original version, it didn't go into the correct position. Now, if you buy the manuscript, it explains an extra step to put it into the correct position in his. When I bought it, it was $1. I think it's $5 for his manuscript now. And I've been fascinated watching the new stuff that's come out. There was like the Pandora box. Some guy, I can't think of his name, but put out one that even in his video trailer, it was edited because he couldn't do it correctly in his video trailer. It was Jean something. I'll think of his name. It's terrible. It had a big-breasted naked girl holding the deck of cards because that was going to make it better. Mark Mason's method, fully loaded, is brilliant. It's very cool. A little restrictive compared to mine, but it's an excellent option for people who want to do it. So I've loved watching all of them. There's a new fellow coming out with a DVD. I don't think I can mention it. If I could, I would. But he has a wonderful version of it that people will be able to do, and they'll be satisfied with it. So as mine sits waiting, people are creating, and their variations are all different. Some are excellent, and some are landmines that should be avoided at all costs. The one that I got, his method didn't work in the demo, and then you needed some supplies that weren't available anywhere, and it was like, and he gave you 3. And I was like, great, so I've got 3 to practice with, and then where to, and that's something I like to accentuate. I cannot tell you.
Oh, sorry.
Cannot tell
correct me if I'm wrong, Shawn, but we actually met online over a discussion about that very effect, I think.
Yeah, I think that's exactly how it began. My favorite laugh now is people that write me, because my wife runs a company called Palmer Magic. I bought a magic company, Palmer Magic, and so we've got like Michael Amar's card wax. My wife and I are the only 2 people in the world that know the formula to that. Slidini silks with the bolted material that Slidini actually bought, and the old lady he picked to hand sew them is still sewing them at 90 years of age. She said to me the other day, do you really need that many? I said, I don't want to be rude, man, but you're 90. Sew as many as you can. I want as many before you're gone. But with this company, I'm surprised by the amount of magicians who write to my wife and say, I'm wondering how fast you can get a product to me because I got a show on Thursday. I'm like, wait, this is a brand new trick, and you want to know how fast it can get to your door so that the next day you can perform it. And it's like, practice some. So when this guy gives you three refills for something, you're going, wait a second, that means I can practice twice if I want to perform it once, and then you're done. That's insane to me. It's like, give me nothing then, because 3 is not enough to let me practice. Give me 30, or give me the ability to get them. Not say, well, this isn't available where you live, but you know, at least I sent you a couple so you can see what it's like. I don't get it. Yeah. So to answer your question succinctly, it took me less than 6 months to come up with the method for it because I really like to think easy. I've come up with far more methods for doing it since then, just for fun. And trying to find ones that I could release to make everybody happy, but nothing is at the level of what I did when I did Penn and Teller. And if I'm going to release it, I'm going to release it in its full format with variations and everything, just when it's safe.
Great. Question from the from FCM, James Sniper. What are your thoughts on modern mentalism?
I used to didn't like it, but I saw a performer perform miracles doing mentalism, and I actually do a few bits in my act because I saw someone do mentalism correctly, and correctly mean entertaining and not boring where it looked like paint is drying. So it was really a wonderful experience because I was like, mentalism. But now, when done correctly and done in a very short time where 30 minutes of the show is not taken up by that one effect, I think it's very valuable. But it's important to get the proper one.
I agree. I used to dislike mentalism because most of the mentalism I saw was boring. Fooling, but I think fooling is the least part of what we do. In the last decade or so, I've been re-educated, and I've seen some amazing mentalism, and I'm kind of infatuated with it at the moment, and gearing myself in kind of the direction to find a new way to do mentalism. Sheer Luck is kind of the opening of the Power of the Mind presentation that I'm putting towards a all mentalism show that I'm slowly producing of new creative ideas. For me, a real turning point was 2006 in Stockholm, Sweden at FISM. Two men came out on stage and did a mentalism act that rocked. They took a second prize. There was no first prize given. There hasn't been for decades at FISM. They took a second prize, and they rocked my world. It's still in my head emotionally. It was just a powerful presentation, almost disturbing, and so clever. And I've had the opportunity to meet them a couple of times, and they've changed from that presentation to something far more commercial, which I found a little sad, because what they did for me in 2006, did for me, did for us, did for the world, that they did on that stage was so amazing in the whole feel of it. It opened my eyes to how mentalism could really be something unbelievable. I've always been a fan of Max Maven's and love his presentations, but I see him not as a mentalist, more as, I don't know, a performer, because he does more than mentalism. I just had the opportunity to perform with him in Japan, and he speaks fluent Japanese. So there was, Canada Boy with Konnichiwa, Watashi wa Shawn Farquhar desu, and Max going out there, blah, 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 and me going, right, I just look like a trained monkey. I was like, mentalism, when done really well, can be amazing.
Entertaining.
There are just so few entertaining, amazing mentalists, but hopefully that field grows too.
Can you mix magic and mentalism?
Yes.
See, if you go to the mentalism board on Steve's Magic Cafe, all the mentalists will say no. There's no way in the world you can mix magic and mentalism, blah, 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 because it delegitimizes the mentalism. But I think I think in some ways it authenticates it. I think if the magic isn't trite, if the magic is as strong as the mentalism is, if the magic is done as well as the mentalism is, they can accentuate each other.
Yes.
That's where the difference is. Most mentalists see magic as the guy with the red box with the golden dragon on it, and most magicians see mentalists as the guy who talks for 22 minutes before coming to the end of a trick and doing this. And it's finding the in-between. A fine example, Jeff and Tessa Everson. Wow! They mix magic in with their mentalism, but it doesn't look like magic, and their mentalism doesn't look like a trick.
Right.
It's just an experience. And I'm blessed to have them as friends for more than 20 years and watch their growth from being magic and mentalism to being what they are now, which is unique in their field. Yep. So yeah, magic and mentalism can work.
And it should be an experience. It should be not just an effect. It should be an experience. You should be like, oh my gosh, this is wonderful.
Should be an affect, not effect.
Yes.
Great. Something totally unrelated, and this is a really selfish point of the interview for me. Tell everybody the story about Henry Box Brown and his inspiration for you in magic.
Wow. Yeah, Henry Box Brown was born into slavery. He was a slave, and he what he did was he mailed himself to Philadelphia in a crate, and to escape slavery, actually. And so they got all the essentials and had someone to nail him up, and they sent him away to another state that didn't have slavery. And then when he got out, he started actually performing as a magician. And, him and his wife, and lecturing on the his progression of getting out of slavery through the box. He had a very rich history. Most African Americans, would tell you about Henry Box Brown as an inspiration. I mean, come on. what more can, what more can you ask for someone using the power of magic to escape from the bounds of slavery? There's a gentleman, and I'm sure he wouldn't mind me mentioning his name. His name is Rory Riddick, and he's from Ohio, and he's actually transformed himself into the character Henry Box Brown, and goes around touring, telling the story about Henry Box Brown and his wife, and they dressed in the form and the look and everything looked just like it, So he has been a very deep and very big inspiration to all people, but especially African Americans, because come on, when someone gives me a little issue, I go, wow, my issue is not worse than slavery. I'm not in the slavery era, so I can get over this because he had to get over it, and he made himself out of slavery, and that's pretty. When you think about that, that's pretty cool. That's a pretty good story. Pretty cool story.
It's hilarious. That's why I asked you about it. I always tend to find that Australians tend to find irony in things quite a lot. I don't know why. It's just part of our national trait, probably, or maybe it's just me. I don't know. But I think it's funny. Houdini was a white guy who got into magic to climb into boxes. Henry Box Brown was a black man who got into boxes so he could get out and become a magician. I think that's the great ironies of life.
Never heard it said that way.
What is it like? There's many things you've never heard said the same way I've said them, Shawn.
Yes.
What is it on that point? And that was a brilliant segue. I've got to say for myself. What is it like to follow in the footsteps of Houdini as president of the SAM?
Wow, it's amazing. It's very good. We have several great presidents. Houdini's probably our most famous one. But you have Thurston and even Golden Murmur, the very first one. But it's wonderful because first I'm president of the Society of American Magicians. But to hold the title of the first African American, it had the history implication behind it. But I was talking to a friend of mine, a very close friend of mine, and he told me basically when we were discussing this, celebrate the richness of the presidency, celebrate the long and prestigious history of our organization, celebrate being the first African American magician, but do not let being an African American, the first African American magician, define your presidency. And so that's where I'm at now. You're actually witnessing Ice McDonald, my Ice McDonald brand, professional performer, as head of the Society of American Magicians. There's nothing I can do about being an African American, because that's who I am.
No.
I am my magic is what I have control over. My position is what I have control over, and I made it that position to be the president. You see, so if I was Asian, if I was Caucasian, no matter what, I would be president of the Society of American Magicians. Yes, I do understand the importance and the history implications of it, and I like it. I'm glad that I am that representative for those who need that representation. But I'm happy to be the Society of American Magicians national president, who happens to be African American.
Hoo-yah. Right now, they're in the Ice Age.
Yes, that's right. Welcome to the Ice Age.
How cool can that be?
Awesome.
Okay, I'm going to change tack completely. Ice, personally, phobias? Do you have any phobias? Are you scared of anything?
Failure. It's not even a cliche with me. I work hard to stay where I am. and not fail. I've been fortunate enough to be blessed and favored by God to be in certain positions, and I don't want to fail, so I work hard. I work very hard to be successful. I will never be successful because I will always re-establish the success line. So, you know, once you get to a certain part, you move on. So my phobia is failure. I always want to be able, another phobia I have is I don't ever want to disrespect someone. I mean, that might, you know, I want to treat people at face value. I don't ever want people to, one of my failures would be me not being able to explain how I feel. For instance, if I really like someone and they get the opposite ideals from me, I'm trying to express to you that you're wonderful and this is great, but then they all of a sudden think I'm saying something totally different. Being misunderstood is a phobia.
Okay. And again, as a great way of a segue, Shawn, your phobias? I know you've got a phobia.
I'm a trichodecaphobiac.
Would you like to explain what that is to people who may not know that?
Oh, trichodecaphobiac. I have a well, the Webster's Dictionary defines it as an unreasonable fear of, but I think it's totally reasonable. I have fear of the number 13. Terrified of it. It's
care to elaborate where that came from, Shawn?
Sure. Back in the early 80s, 1985, I had an apartment, and on Friday the 13th, it flooded with 6 feet of raw sewage. That's, you know, the human excrement to a 6-foot water line in my apartment, wiping us out. But, you know, I shook it off pretty good. In 1989, no, pardon me, in 88, May 13th, 88, that's a Friday if you want to look that one up. I came home from an event, and a person threw a Molotov cocktail through the apartment window and burned a, what was it, 6, 12, 13 apartment building, 13 apartment building down to the ground. I went into the fire 6 times, rescued 11 people, got a whole bunch of hero awards for it, but I lost pretty much everything I owned at the time. In 2002, I think it was 2002, don't quote me on that one, but a little later on, it might have been 90-something, 93, oh, I think it was 93, yeah, 1993, on pardon me?
97, according to your bio.
The fire was in 1980. 88.
Sometime.
Fire was in 88 because I got married in 89, and the flood was earlier. And then after the flood and the fire, I had a car drive through my living room at full speed, also on a Friday the 13th. Yeah, the fire was definitely 88, May of 88. The flood was earlier, 85. And so then the car might have been 97 when it went through. I remember being on the phone with one of my friends, Ray Medway, and I just got off a cruise, and my wife was watching TV, and the phone rang, and I started talking to Ray, sitting in my office, and all of a sudden I heard a car crashing, and I heard a smash. I said, hey, Ray, I might have to hang up and call 911. I started walking down a flight of stairs, and all of a sudden I was on my butt going down to the bottom. And I looked, and in the living room was a car. And I said, I got to go. A car just drove into my house. Hung up the phone, fired the ambulance, the police, so they were all there. And then my friend Ray pulls up in his car and says, what are you doing here? He says, come on. You scream into the phone. There's a car in my house. Of course I'm coming over to look.
And that's all on the 13th?
All on the 13th.
What's today's date?
We're good.
No, we're good. What do you do on Friday the 13th now?
I have a dozen more events that I can tell you about that have happened on the 13th, and none of them have been good. In fact, last January, on the 13th, I was in Florida, about to board a cruise ship for a creativity magic workshop called Creativity at Sea. And I was with Suzanne the magician, and she had just read my bio and had found out that I was a triskaidekaphobiac and was bugging me about it. She said, look, today's the 13th, and nothing bad is happening. I said, and I'm really happy for that. And then about an hour later, just before we got onto the ship, my next-door neighbor emailed me pictures of how the water line had burst in front of my house, and my house was beginning to flood. And I said, and there's proof. And she just looked at me and said, I'm moving away from you. And just got to the other side of the room. Yeah. People who are bored can read. I have a blog write-up all about triskaidekaphobia and how it's real.
Well, an irrational fear only has to be real to you, Shawn.
I think I've got enough reasons to make it real.
Yes.
Absolutely, absolutely. Gentlemen, I know you've got other commitments this evening. It is this evening over there now. So unless you want to keep chatting, we'll wrap it up. I'm pretty sure you've got something else on later this evening.
We do have more, but if you had any other questions that you want to finish off that the FCM guys want to know, throw them at us quick. Maybe we can do them in fast.
Sure. I didn't want to help you guys ages. Look, I got notes. Yeah, look, yeah, we got lots of questions. Let me have a look. Cool. Okay. Let me have a look. What are your thoughts on gaffs? There's a good one.
Yes.
Yeah, look, I know. I'm pretty on gaff cards and coins. I'll direct that to you first, guys, because yeah.
My idea on gaffs, I'll use any tool that'll create any effect. So I'll gaff the entire thing to death if it creates the right effect.
And yes, definitely set everything up.
No purists in this room. It doesn't have to be. If a gaff will make it work and it makes it easier, and I create the same effect or a better effect, I'm all over it.
It makes the audience smile at the end result, and it's entertaining. Go for it.
That was an easy question.
Yeah. It was easy. Sure. No. Okay. So in a few months when the tenure's over, guys, what are the plans for you, Ice? And yeah, I'll get Ice to answer first, Shawn. What are the plans after your tenure as the president ends and you start trying to rebuild a career?
Well, rebuilding a career, I haven't stopped building it. I've been preparing for this position for the last 3 years. So being a person who prepares, I've already started preparing for the moment I step out of the position. I will go on a tour. I'm definitely on a tour. Actually, one of my first dates is at his convention at IBM. Then I will go in. I'm also a director. I directed my first film, my first full feature film, which is in the film festival circuits.
Death of an Innocent Swan. Look for it at your independent film festivals.
Yes, at the independent. So I'm doing 3 documentaries. One is on magic, actually, and the rest are on other interests. So I will be going on a magic tour. I will be going on a lecture tour. I will be continuing to interview and preparing the documentaries. I will be moving towards product, and I do corporate speaking. So I will be doing. I am booking for several corporate speaking. It's crazy because my lecture on magic translated to business and presentations and stuff. So corporates are bringing me in. I have to take out the secrets, but the whole method and motivation is still the same. So I have a list of things that we've already prepared for to continue the ICE brand moving forward.
And you, Shawn?
I'm going to be his roadie. What am I going to do? I'm going to sleep. I'm going to take a really long break. No, I'm not. As soon as the presidency ends, I have friends, Mike and Jen Segal, who they have this thing called Sorcerer Safari Magic Camp, and it's the happiest place on earth. And I'm going to go to that. I'm going to try to help and focus and help them to grow its brand a little bit more, because I really think it needs to be seen more. It's a wonderful opportunity for young magicians. I've just signed a long-term contract to go into a resort directly following my presidency. So I will go to Sorcerer Safari Camp. I'll run my own private magic festival. I'll probably be hosting the PCAM convention. That'll all be in the month afterwards. And then I'm going to go and do this 3-month contract at a resort, which will give me some time to catch my breath, come home. That'll be Christmas time. And then next year, 2016, I will probably start to gauge towards slowing down on the travel. Sooner or later, I gotta kind of pull it back. And my dream is to have my own little private theater and have people come to me. I've been working towards it for more than a decade. Just more performing, maybe a little less travel. Maybe a few nights in my own bed would be nice. I just built a king-size bed, and I've slept in it 3 times now. Yay. Tonight will be 4 nights in the same bed. It's a record. It was funny because I thought I was going to pass that, and all of a sudden we bought a new bed, so I can still say that I only slept 3 nights in a bed because then I had a new bed. But I had slept more than 3 nights in the same location. Yeah, I can get a little sleep. That's what I'm going to do. And I'm going to perform more magic. Maybe release a few more of my ideas. I have an office filled with about 25 ideas. My Cups and Balls is going to come out. I have a friend, Peter Landros, who's really working hard to make that come together for me, so I'm very, very happy. And I'm going to try to renew some friendships because I've been away so long here that most of my friends I only see a couple times a year. I want to have a little bit more time. The good thing is I get to travel with my family lots, and I want to be around for the next few years as my daughter finishes high school.
Is the resort contract, is that your illusion show, Secrets?
No, it won't be the illusion show. It's I'm going to be part. I don't think I'm allowed to release it at this time, but I can say I'm going to be part of a compilation show made up of a small group of good magicians, great magicians performing in a show. That's the way I can say it for now.
That seems to be a fairly common format now, or becoming a common format. What are the advantages? I mean, I myself have done, even at my small level, have done shows with 3 and 4 magicians. I until recently had a character act, as you know, called Bohemia Brothers, and that was a plug-in, plug-out act. You could have as many people as you like coming in and out of that. What are the advantages? What are the disadvantages for you guys?
I think it's a real old format. It's the magic convention format.
Right.
And it's worked for decades and decades. And I think the producers just realized recently, those magic convention formats really work because you can take 5 people, each with one strong element, and put together a brilliant show where not every performer is able to do the illusion, the manipulation, the comedy, and the mentalism, and put it all together with sexy or elegant or masculine, but by having 5 or 6 performers, you can hit all those demographics. And so magic conventions have been doing it forever, and producers, mainstream producers, have only just realized it in the last 5 or 6 years and begun putting together these events.
And it's somewhat easier on the performer, actually.
Wow, simple.
I've done 2 hours, 90-minute shows, and it is work. And so a lot of times you can kind of like take a moment. You do your piece and then you take a moment. You're not on the whole show.
I toured with Murray Hatfield. It was one of the best illusion that Mike has ever offered. Murray is a phenomenal producer too, and for 21 years, I think 24 years, he produced a touring magic show on a bus with a truck, hitting, the first year I did it, I think we did 92 or 98 shows, 3 shows a day in cities, and mounted the show in a theater, and packed it all up and moved to the next place. And I was on with Juliana Chen, and we're like brother and sister. We had just the best time. And Murray, and he's had acts like Eric Buss. I've had the opportunity to travel with Danny Cole on the tour, and Jeff McLeod. And those tours to me are some really fun memories because on stage, they treat you like a massive star, and off stage, you're just the best of friends, sharing ideas. I was on with Charlie Fry and Sherry, And the very first night of the tour that time, Charlie said, being the juggler, would it be okay at the sociable party if I did my magic first? Because they expect you to work for the sponsors afterwards. I'm like, well, he's the juggler, sure. Then Charlie went out there and fried them with his magic because he's an exceptional magician. I was like, okay, the rule is the juggler goes last from now on. But to have, conversations with Charlie and Danny and Murray together sitting in a bus, just sharing our thoughts was really exceptional because it wasn't like at a convention where everybody wants a piece of your time. It was nobody had a piece of your time besides these people, and you had 8 and 10 hour drives in which to exhaust the subject over 3 or 4 days. Yeah, I really liked that format a lot, and I get lonely on the road because I grew up, being on the road with my family. Then I married my wife, and my wife and I traveled in the family, and then I had a family of my own, and we traveled together. And then a few years ago, with Hannah going to school, all of a sudden I'm this lone wolf wizard wandering the world by myself, sleeping in hotel rooms by myself, and traveling by myself, and it's not the same.
People don't understand. The glamour and the glitz of being on the road is wonderful. When the lights and everything come on, it's wonderful. But when you're traveling alone, you're in a hotel by yourself alone. Sometimes you're eating dinner alone. I'm not complaining because this is the life that I've chosen. But sometimes those compilation shows keep you from being alone on the show on foreign countries and even in the States. You have someone to talk to.
Yeah.
When I walk in a room, the first thing I look at is the TV working because we're going to be spending a lot of time together. So, it definitely has an advantage.
Yeah. Now things are a little different. We got Skype, we got Google Hangout, we got Facebook. I can stay connected better. But on the road, it can be. If I have to hear one more waitress look at me, look behind me, look around and go, just one? My new line is to when they say, table for one, I do this. Oh, gee, did she leave already?
Yeah, I think even magicians probably underestimate just how daunting and difficult and hard and soul-destroying even possibly it can be to develop your own 2-hour show. I did it myself last August for the first time ever, and it was probably rubbish, but boy, I learned a lot. But not something I can take on in a hurry. How do you go carrying an audience for 2 hours?
You make sure you have a good character.
Yes.
Likability is a major factor. And you got to make a character that, if you're lucky, your character is natural.
Right.
Because then it's not so much acting as being. So. And be in the moment. 2 hours is a long time. Long time.
Yeah. I always talk about, we have big illusions, and sometimes we have small illusions, but I tell people all the time, magic doesn't always have to be big. It just needs to be true. And so you can sit on the side of a stage. I've seen Shawn sit on the side of a stage and do the gypsy thread and blow everybody out of the water. And he does other illusions, and they go, that thing you did with the thread was crazy good. So if it's true and you're true to yourself and your character's intact, you can pull it off. But like Shawn said, living in the moment is what's going to get you through that 200 moments. 2-hour moments.
I recently became the owner of an extreme hanky from Sean Begonia. He was generous enough to give me the very first one, and I had it for almost 6 or 7 months before anybody else ever saw it, and gave me the opportunity to tour with it and to tweak it and tell him what I liked and didn't like. And he's a brilliant creator. And I laugh because I have these illusions like an origami, compressed. I just bought like an audience acupuncture, and I have like Blaney's ladder levitation. And I floated my daughter 12 feet in the air, vanish her in midair, and she appears in the back of the audience running up with a teddy bear. And people afterwards go, that thing with the handkerchief, wow! You're like, I love that because, when you did the card trick, I cried. You're like, awesome. I had a woman, when I finished Thread of Life, she came up to me and she said, you know what? I heard exactly what you were saying in that story, and I'm going home to tell my daughter to get out of my life and to go find her own apartment and stop ruining my life, and thank you very much for sharing that with me. And I was like, I said all that? It was like, when you build the show, as long as you're true to yourself, people will write their own stuff all around it, but you just keep on your path. I was lucky going to school. I had a guy named Milt Wright who was my theatrical teacher, and when I was in high school in grade 12, I'd already had my own television series, so I was pretty arrogant. I was not the best person I could have been. I thought I knew a lot. I'd been on TV. People knew who I was in my country, blah, 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 blah. I show up in the theater class, and Uncle Milt Wright was trying to teach me, and I was like, what are you going to teach me kind of attitude? And Milt could see that the first day, and he opened up his desk drawer, and he pulled out a playbill from Broadway, and he handed it to me. And it was the magic show, Doug Henning. And I looked at it, and I said, you saw this? He said, saw it. I helped produce it. And he opened it to show his name in the book. And I became this student instantly. It was like, share. And I was so lucky to learn that, humble yourself down to everybody, because everybody's got a lesson they'll teach you, even if the lesson is what not to do.
Observe. Just be observant.
Yeah.
You can learn so much by looking at someone who is failing, and just learn not to fail.
Milt taught us, ebb and flow. You can't be all straight up. There's got to be moments where it's soft, and then moments where it's funny, and moments where it's serious. Look at the greatest magicians alive today are people like Johnny Thompson, to me, Lance Burton, David Copperfield, of course. These guys are stunning. Darren Brown, I enjoy their magic because there's texture. There's texture to their magic. It's not all one thing. They move from one area to the next, and because it's not a contrived character, even though like Johnny Thompson has a character, it's not contrived. It allows you to be involved in the show, and it allows you parameters. When Lance Burton first walked out to do his first evening show, I could honestly tell you I thought it would tank, because I knew Lance as the bird magician. I idolized him. Channing Pollock, Shimada, Lance Burton, these were the guys. And when he spoke and the words came out of his mouth and it had this twang, Louisville kind of, hi, I'm Lance Burton. I was like, what? Because in my mind it was this, staunch Englishman or French guy, and it was like, and these are my girls. I was like, and I thought, this is going to die. But by the middle of the show, I was totally enamored with him. And it was like I had taken a bullet for him. By the end of the show, I was the first to leap to my feet. And someone, either him or someone close to him, was smart enough to recognize that if he tried to keep that Lance Burton character at the start of his career, for the whole career, he wouldn't have had the amazing success that he's had. He wouldn't be the idol that he still is to me today. But because he became natural in the show and took moments to break and sit down and talk to the audience,
yes.
You then accepted him exactly what he was, an awesome, good old boy who would go fishing the day he retired. And
being true. That's
yeah,
exactly
being true.
Being true.
And I try really hard in what I do to stay that way, so that when I can do those big shows like Secret, it's not me trying to be David Copperfield. It's not me trying to be Lance Burton or Darren Brown. It's just me being me on a stage.
Yeah, with respect, I think Milt probably taught you to be a better character, which impacted on else by the sounds of it.
Yeah.
Which I think is important. I must admit there are times when I would unashamedly admit to you that there are times when I would say in a situation, what would Shawn do?
I think that's a good thing for anybody to look to somebody that they admire, and there's all levels, and to say, in this situation, or if I were going to present that, what would, to me, Johnny Thompson is the greatest living magician alive, because he's the link between, Marlowe and Penn and Teller. He helps them both. And so for me, when I look at stuff and I go, what's my solution? I always say the same thing. What would JT do? And And if I can think of what Johnson would do, that's the way I go. And if I can't, I try to get his ear and ask.
Yeah. Now you initially didn't want to do Penn and Teller. Is that true?
Nope, I didn't. I didn't like the idea, the premise of the show being fool us, and it had to be explained to me. How it was explained was it's going to be a celebration of magic, and that they'll treat it very bubble. And I was like, yeah, still not really big on that. And I said, so who do I have to tell my secret to? And they said, well, you'll have to tell it to one judge, and that judge will be the only person that needs to know it, and then they can determine if the boys have figured it out or not. And I said, well, who would that judge be? I said, Johnny Thompson. I said, sign me up. It's like another opportunity to sit in the room with Johnny Thompson. I'll explain the whole trick to him. I'd held the secret in my soul for so long, and I wanted somebody else to know. I really wanted to go, look how clever I am, but I couldn't do it. And then when I had this opportunity to show Johnny Thompson how it worked, it was like, here it is. And it's funny because I explained it to him, and he still didn't get it all, and he was honest. He said, I'm missing part of it. And I explained it again, then off I went. About an hour later, there was a knock on our dressing room area. He said, can I talk to you for a minute? Sure. And he says, still need a clarification on one part. Then I explained that. He goes, got it now. He says, just want to let you know you're going to fool the boys. Just walked away. And I was like, really? He says, they might get part of it, but they're not going to get all of it. And it was such a reassuring moment because, you know, you're terrified. I was the first act on the first day to step through the doorway in front of them. Audience of 750 people. Lots of technical errors leading up to my introduction. They introduced me 3 times before I could come through the sliding doors. I'm out there. I took a deep breath, and all I could hear in my head was Johnson saying, you're going to fool the boys. They might get part of it, but they're not going to get all of it. And I relaxed and did it because the producer's words came in. It's a celebration of magic. And I'm really glad I did it. Yeah, but I almost didn't do it.
Who was if Johnny Thompson's Shawn's guru, who's yours?
Wow. I have a couple of heroes I look to. I'm a little bit different because sometimes I go outside of magic for heroes. As I said, one of my heroes was Sammy Davis Jr. One of my heroes was Muhammad Ali, basically because the perseverance part. I have friends in magic. I have Shawn and I. It's obvious that we look very highly at each other. I run stuff past Shawn, and if we would admit this from day one, I would come up with a brilliant idea, and there's only 2 people I would call. I would call Shawn, and I would call a gentleman by the name of Mike Miller to see if they even have seen it before. With my magic experiences, I've been mostly concentrating on trying to be excellent in my work. So I know faces, I know great magicians. I just am concentrating on being the best. So I have a lot of friends in the business. Heroes, I think I've been touched by so many people. I have a lot of heroes. And they're not necessarily in magic. And to give one name, I think I would dishonor some of the other names who was a great influence in my life. There's a lot of magicians. I talk to Les. I talk to Johnny Thompson. Those guys mean a lot. Goldfinger and Dove. I talk to them. They're big inspirations. Matter of fact, they were my inspirations when I first started. I saw them on my black and white television performing, and I'm seeing someone who actually looks like me on national television performing. So I go, okay, I can do this. Because up until then, all I saw was pretty much white entertainers or Asian entertainers, Shimada and those guys. So there's so many great magicians who touched my life. Jack Cordell, Jack Cordell. I've talked to a couple of other great people. So all of them are part of me. I think have a piece of me, but I really don't want to put a face on that because they all have contributed something into my career.
Oh yeah.
Okay, again, I was saying social media and magic. What's friends or foe?
I missed
It
it.
kind of broke up. You said something about social media, but we didn't really hear it on this end.
Repeat.
My volume's coming through on here. Social media and magic. Friend or foe? Is it a help or is it a help?
Oh, social media magic, friend or foe? Friend.
It's friend, but sometimes it's the friend that you have to hide when company's around.
Yeah.
Um,
It's this friend you got a back slap in the back of the head when they act stupid. But it's a friend.
It's a friend, and it could be depending on the day. It could be a powerful.
I look at social media as a great connecting tool. Keeps me from being lonely. Lets me know what my friends are up to. It keeps friendships that, you know, I've reconnected with people that I haven't seen in 35 years. I have a no-host New Year's Eve party every year at Chateau Farquhar. We have, I think this year there was over 100 people that show up. We don't send out an invitation and people just show up. And this year there was a knock on the door and there was a young man standing there with a pregnant girl. I didn't know either one of them. Said, "Hi, welcome to my house." And they said, "We came with my father." And I said, "And your father is?" And this guy stepped out of the shadows. And it was this guy, Craig, that I haven't seen in 25 years. I was the best man at his wedding 35 years ago. And I was like, wow. And he goes, "Yeah, I saw you on Facebook." And he said, "You're like open so anybody can follow you. So I'm following you. And I just saw about the New Year's Eve party." And I'm like, "Come on in." And we reconnected, talked till 5:30 the next morning. It was hilarious. And it's like social media can do so much for magic, to spread the word, to let you know what's going on. Things like the Keep Calm Perform Magic was totally built off of social media. The IBM and SAM. Twitter is still foreign to me. I'm trying my best to understand it. I love Instagram. I think it's great that I can put up a picture in a second and 1,000 people see it and 400 people respond and I giggle. It's like, wow. All of it's cool. Now they got this new one, Elo, that looks like it could be really awesome. Look at Full Circle Magic and what a great community it is. It's almost at 6,000 strong. Is that right? I know it's way over 5,000 because I was a 5,000 member.
Well, you were the 5,000 member.
Yeah, I like that.
And I just got
joined
on,
into it.
so yeah.
I love it because the moderators keep it a good community. There's no negativity. People, there's not a lot of commercial advertising. When it is, it's done correctly. Everything's authorized. There's good discussions. Young people feel safe to ask things in there. Social media done correctly can be a powerful, great tool. Social media done poorly can lead to people dying. It's all about how it's handled and the people in it. I've been very careful in the last year to weed out. I've almost hit 5,000 on Facebook, and the fact is there isn't a single person that is in my Facebook friends list that I haven't actually had at least an hour's conversation with. And 90% of 95% are face-to-face. But as time is going along, I started to realize I don't agree with everybody that's on that page, and that's good. But some of them I've opposed to now. Now it's time to start weeding them out because it's making my social experience not as positive as I'd like it to be. So as long as it's monitored and moderated, I think it can be a powerfully good tool. Of course, it can also be used for evil, and I've seen it used for evil.
Absolutely.
And it's used with where they think there's no consequences. And the fact is, just because you can't see the person or you're not face to face with them, don't say anything that you wouldn't say to their face, because sooner or later that person's going to show up on your doorstep.
Especially with the location thing on.
Yeah.
You know, my process. Let's look at the history of all this. Back in the day when they had World War I and World War II and the different wars, when it was not televised, people reacted totally different because they didn't actually see firsthand images. And then we come down to Desert Storm. You know, Vietnam War, they didn't see. They saw film or what people let you see. Desert Storm was the first war that people actually saw people getting shot and things blowing up. Okay, and so now that changed people's mindset, and so on and so forth down through history. That likens to where we are with the social media now. It has a different feel and showing a little bit more than it showed in the past. People just have to get used to how to handle what they say, what they do, what they can get away with, what they can't get away with, a little bit different, just like when television starts showing wars and what people will say. Or, you know, now we're seeing the danger of everything and the best side of everything. You just have to calculate during this media time and what's going on now, what the rules are. Yeah, that's a good one. What the rules are.
Take responsibility for the consequences of the actions you're about to do.
Yeah.
And say that every time before you type something onto social media, and you'll be a happy camper. Because I am amazed at the amount of people that write something angry and mean, and then they can't back down from it. Yeah. And it's like, then you should have written it. Yeah. I have a friend that shoots himself in the foot about every 3 days. He posts something negative, then has to apologize for it, takes it off, and then writes something just as negative 3 or 4 days later and apologize for it. Soon there'll be nobody on his Facebook page except for the people that want to stay there to watch the car crash. Right. So it's important to take the consequences for the actions that you're about to take.
Also, you never, ever hit reply all.
Yeah, I hate that. Man, why do people do that? I have 1,777 unanswered emails as of this weekend because I'm spending time with my friend Ice and hanging out at a Magic Jam. And yesterday, at the end of the jam, while we were sitting in the Denny's with 40 magicians, gnawing down on a burger, I looked at my phone and showed him, and it said 1,777 emails. I'll bet you a third of them have reply all on them.
Yes. Yes.
Crazy. Well, Daz, we are going to have to wrap this up.
Yeah, so I think it's time we wrapped it up, guys. I think looks like my connection's starting to break up a little bit as well. So, look, thank you so much for the time. Thank you so much for your honesty.
You're just breaking right there, and we're losing you.
Maybe so much for your...
Okay.
You're still there, but we're not hearing you.
I'm still here. I'm still here, but you can't hear me, obviously.
Oh, we got you.
Now we got you again.
Okay. We'll wrap it up. I'm losing my connection, obviously. Thank you so much from the FCM. Thanks for your honesty. Thanks for answering the questions. Thanks for your time. It's taken a long time to catch up for this particular thing, Shawn. Hopefully not as much time before we do it again. Same with you, Ice. Great to talk to you. Great to meet you in person. And I will wrap it up there. And if there are any other questions, guys, from the FCM world, please post them on the thread, and we will get some answers for you post-haste. I'll leave it with you guys. I'll sign out and say thank you again so much.
Thank you very much, and everyone, keep the faith.
Oh, I like that.